Thank you so much. I am very excited to be here speaking at the WOW conference like all of the other presenters. I think it's just a great opportunity, and I was very thankful that Dr. Hewitt asked me to speak after I attended in September. My name is Susie Garcia. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist. I have a private practice here in the Bay Area called Nutrition for Your Lifestyle. And I have to say that actually being and speaking here is kind of what I call the serendipity of my life since I moved to Northern California. I had 6 years ago left a bad marriage, one of those big, bad, ugly ones with abuse and drugs and all of that stuff. And I look at it as a really bad movie I saw a long time ago. And my aunt and uncle asked me to come out and house sit for a month. I have never left. And what was great when I was here, I actually rediscovered a quote that I want to read for you. I'd always liked it, and it's sort of when you get caught in the minutia of things, you forget things that you once liked. It's by Joseph Campbell. If you follow your bliss, you put yourself on a kind of track that has been there all the while, waiting for you. And the life that you ought to be living is the one you are living. Wherever you are, if you are following your bliss, you are enjoying that refreshment, that life within you all the time. And I really embrace that, and so I feel like I've been following my bliss, and that has brought me here to talk to you about eating for energy instead of emotion. So there are a lot of different types of emotional eaters. You can be an anxious eater, a bored eater, situational eater. It runs the gamut, and women especially have problems with emotional eating. And when you're eating for emotion and not energy, you're missing out on nourishing your body. And so I've identified 3 areas that most women can have those emotional eating problems kind of rear their ugly head. And I'm going to talk more about some tools that you can use and hopefully implement right away with your eating habits as opposed to why you are an emotional eater. So the 3 areas are tasks, time, and guilt. And I couldn't come up with a word that meant guilt that started with a T to make it cute, so we're just going with tasks, time, and guilt. So the first area that women are perfectly masters at are tasks. We are all task masters. We've got to-do lists, we're checking things off, we can multitask, we're taking care of kids, we're answering the phone, doing a million things at once, and a lot of those tasks are related to the things that we're doing for other people. So how many of you here, if you think about it, you have kids and you make them breakfast in the morning and you don't make anything for yourself? You think, oh, well, yeah, I'll get to it. Or you're packing lunches for your spouse or your partner, and you're like, you don't even put anything in a baggie for yourself, and all of a sudden it's 1 o'clock and I haven't eaten anything. So when you get caught up in those tasks, that's where sometimes a lot of anxious eating will happen, because you're just, I'm in a hurry, and you grab something and you're driving, and you're not conscious of whether you're energizing or nourishing your body or not. And a task that then can be missing is, what am I going to make for dinner? I didn't even think of that. You didn't put it on your to-do list, and so you're going through a drive-through, or you're picking up takeout to take home. So one thing that I would like to suggest when you're talking about the task list is to actually think about some meal planning. And it is what it says. It's planning. So it's something that needs to be worked into a to-do list. And one of the easiest ways that I have found with my clients to start making your meal planning easier is to use your freezer. Because if you have something that's in your freezer, some lean proteins that you can take out the night before that morning, then you've got, oh yeah, I have that thought out, I can make it. And it also gives you an opportunity to take advantage of specials at the grocery store. You can stock up on chicken, fish, tofu, things like that, and so they're just ready for you. Now, I do have a task for all of you to put on your task list, because you all have one, and if you're taking notes, please write it down. It's clean out my freezer, and put a date on it. Maybe not tomorrow, because we've got the 49ers playing, but within the next week or 2, and you will be amazed at the freezer burned stuff that you find that's back crammed in the drawer. What is this? Why did I save it? Because you can't utilize your freezer to make a double batch of soup or stew or something like that to use in a few weeks if it's crammed full of freezer burned food that isn't any good. And I'm not wanting to be wasteful, but most foods are still healthy and good for 3 to 6 months when they're frozen. After that, the quality is really diminished, and it's just taking up space. I also encourage you to continue that maybe over the next month, and then do your refrigerator, get rid of those condiment bottles that have like this much stuff in the bottom that you are never going to use again because it won't come out anyway. And also to your pantries. Check and make sure you don't have expired food in your pantries because it isn't safe to eat expired food. So going on from tasks, we're going to talk about time. Time has a lot of, I guess, opportunity for people that have emotional eating issues to surface because you can be short of time, long on time. But the time things that I want to talk about are not time management, because that's more task management that we were talking about with meal planning, but how much time you take between your meals and how long it takes you to eat. So the rule of thumb that I like to use on meal planning, and this is something that hopefully you can utilize, is you want to eat about the first hour and a half after you get up and eat every 4 to 6 hours after that. You want to wait as much as you can, wait 4 hours so that your hormones have a chance to reset, and not go more than 6 hours because then you're going to be at risk for overeating. There are some exceptions to that. If someone has hypoglycemia or somebody is really, really athletic and is just burning through calories, they may need to eat more often. But in general, eating every 4 to 6 hours is going to help balance your nutrition. Now, if you're a grazer, where you're just eating a little bit here, a little bit there, and literally eating almost every hour, you don't really know if you're satisfied or not. And a lot of people that are grazers are like, well, I haven't eaten a meal, so I need to have my plate of protein and starch and veggies. And then you can end up eating too many calories because you've essentially already eaten plenty of calories as you're grazing, but you don't really realize that you're satisfied, and then you end up with this feeling of fullness. So it goes hand in hand with meal timing. Another rule that I have that has to do with how fast you're eating, it's very simple. You've probably heard it before. It's the 20-minute rule. It takes your stomach 20 minutes to tell your brain that you're full. And I know that if I'm really hungry, I can eat 2 helpings of food in 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I really feel quite miserable. And that's usually going to be because I either didn't eat enough for lunch or got stuck in traffic, and it's just gone too long between meals. But there are people that have fast eating as a habit, and it could be an emotional habit. I see it a lot with school teachers. They have, 17, 22 minutes to eat for lunch, so their habit is that they're really eating quickly, or busy executives that are gulping down a fast meal in between their conference calls. So when you're a fast eater, you're not allowing your brain to know that you're actually full or satisfied. Now, in both of these examples of eating every 4 to 6 hours and grazing, and also talking about being a fast eater, I've talked about being full or satisfied. And if you're taking notes, this is a way to think about it, because what happens over time, which can be an effect of emotion eating, is you have a warped sense of what satisfied is. So on your paper, if you want to write it, you can write satisfied, and then an arrow, full, and then an arrow, and stuffed. So what happens for the grazers, they're kind of eating around this satisfied all the time. They're not really ever hungry because they're always feeding themselves. And then when they finally eat a meal, they're actually full, but they think that that's satisfied because they're always here, they're not ever hungry. Now, someone that's a fast eater and you're just eating very, very quickly, you're going to pass satisfied, not even realize full is there, and you end up stuffed. And so your perception of what it feels like to be satisfied with a meal is actually that feeling of being full or overstuffed. So over time, when you're looking at how you're changing your meal timing, you want to look at how fast you're eating, how many hours are between your meals, and gradually change that mind-body perception of, okay, I'm actually not hungry anymore, I am satisfied, and you can then not get that second helping or order more food. And the last tip that I have in regards to time is a split second tip, and it actually has to do with the whole full satisfied stuff thing. And I use it personally a lot, and it really helps me make better choices. It's really easy. You don't have to journal. You don't have to do a whole lot of writing down of anything. It's using the hunger scale. On a scale of 1 to 5, how hungry am I? If you're a 1, you're not hungry. That means, that's pretty much how you feel like within a half hour, an hour after you've eaten. You're not hungry. If you're a 5, that's when you are starving and the little note that I was reading looked really tasty. So we really shouldn't be eating on either end of that spectrum, because if you're standing in front of the refrigerator and you think to yourself, okay, on a scale of 1 to 5, how hungry am I? And actually you don't that long, you can just think, what is my number? Oh, it's a 1. Well, what am I doing standing here in front of the refrigerator? By taking that split second to think 1, you can then make the conscious choice to do something else, like close the door, and then go maybe call a friend, go for a walk, do something. You may think I'm a 1, but you know, maybe I'm just a little bit thirsty, because a lot of times being sub-level dehydrated manifests itself as feeling like you're hungry. So maybe you have some herbal tea, have some sparkling water with a lemon and lime, something that's a little bit special. But by having that thought, you've stopped yourself from just rummaging through the refrigerator, not even realizing that you have just eaten several more 100 calories. Now, if you are realizing that you actually are eating on a 1 a lot, there probably is some type of emotional eating, and you might feel like you're at the point of no return. So that's where you want to have low calorie choices available. Carrots, celery sticks, cucumbers, even a cup of almond milk that's unsweetened is only 40 calories. So as you're learning to not eat on the 1, you can still have something that's helping you break that habit. So the final area that I wanted to talk about is guilt. As women, we can pretty much feel guilty for almost any and everything. And when it comes to food, it is really easy to feel guilty. And guilty eating in and of itself is an emotional eating habit. But I think a lot of the problem with guilt is what I consider to be a really disastrous negative spiral. Now, how many of you at the beginning of the year, I mean, we're just coming off of January, had some type of eating improvement that they were going to do, whether it was a new diet plan or something? I mean, I did too, and that's great. Unfortunately, most people only make it through about 2 weeks, and then they start going back to their old habits. And I think a lot of that has to do with this negative spiral that occurs. So let's say that your eating habit improvement was going to be to really try to cut back on sugar. You know, get rid of sodas, not eating dessert all the time, you know, just taking out refined sugar foods. And so you're doing great, you know, you're going along, and then you get invited to a birthday party and you decide to have a piece of cake. And it was good cake, but then you really feel bad about it. It's like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that cake. And so then you get up the next morning, you're still thinking about the piece of cake, and you're like, well, you know, I already blew it. I can't do it. I feel so guilty about it. I just, obviously this is too hard. So, I'm just going to make some bacon and eggs and some pancakes with a whole bunch of syrup on it too. And then, so then you eat that, and now you're guilty about the breakfast, and you're still thinking about the piece of cake. And you're like, well, it just doesn't matter. I failed at it. I'm just going to go get a burrito from the place around the corner. And then you order pizza for dinner, and what the heck, you might as well have a couple of beers with it. All of that because of a piece of cake. So, and that's where it happens, is you get it in your head, oh, I can't do it, I failed. And so the one thing that I would like you to think and or write down is clean slate. Every meal, every day is a clean slate for you to start over. Just because you didn't have your smoothie or whatever, if you didn't have that available, you can still choose something that is going to be healthy. Maybe it's an egg white omelet. So don't think about your piece of cake. Think about a clean slate of what am I going to do to nourish my body? How am I going to eat for energy? Because our food is energy. You can't have energy without a calorie. So taking a handful of vitamins is not going to give you energy. But nourishing your body with good, wholesome foods that are less processed is what's going to give you energy. So just to recap, we've got your task is to clean your freezer. The time tips are going to be to eat every 4 to 6 hours. Remember the 20-minute rule. And also using the hunger scale. On a scale of 1 to 5, how hungry am I? Now, the dietitian is talking about food right before lunch, so probably all of us are right around a 4, which is where we should be. And like I said, that is really one of my favorite, and if any of you use that as a takeaway and find that it's helpful for you, I'd love to hear from you. Grab my business card at the table that I have, and I would love to just get a quick email if that's one of the tips that you actually found helpful. And then the final thought is, with guilt, don't feel guilty. It's a clean slate. Every meal and every day is an opportunity for a clean slate. I want to thank you very much for your time and attention. Enjoy lunch, and I wish health and bliss to all of you. Thanks.